بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Dear beloved participants, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I take this opportunity to thank the Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and may peace and blessing be to our beloved Messenger, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. I welcome all of you to our monthly public talk or lecture, of which different financial topics are presented and discussed. And today we are very happy to present to you a topic of the day with regards to social security and varieties of social security institutions that are operating in Tanzania as well as in Kenya. The host and the moderator, and of course will be the speaker later on, is first myself. I'm the moderator. My name is Khalfan Abdullah. I'm Managing Director of Abrar Consult. Khalfan Abdullah is an experienced Islamic finance contributor, a trainer and advisor who has been working and writing about Islamic finance for quite some time, over the past 10 years. And we are doing several trainings on Islamic finance, as well as providing advisory on the same, but also on other areas, the likes of advisory on zakat, advisory on waqf, advisory on inheritance, Islamic inheritance, advisory on Islamic management and leadership, among many other things. Without taking much time, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Dr. Mansab. He has already joined us from Mombasa, Kenya. Dr. Mansab has obtained his PhD from the International Islamic University, Malaysia, the Kulliyah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Heritage, or Usul al-Fiqh, and he has a master's in Sharia and law at the University of Dongola, Sudan. He also holds a bachelor's degree from the School of Sharia and Islamic Studies at the International University of Khartoum, Sudan. Currently, he is a lecturer at the School of Sharia and Islamic Study at University. Dr. Mansab, we thank you so much for making time to join us and for your readiness to share with us on the topic of the day. Without taking much time, karibu sana, and the floor is yours.
شكرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So inshallah today I would like to discuss with you the issue associated with National Security Fund. So first, let us ask ourselves, what is a pension? A pension is that amount of disposable income saved up over working years that will cater for life after retirement. And there are several important. Pension is important because number one, help to maintain the standard of living after retirement by catering for basic needs like housing, food, and medical. Also, pension is important because provide a safety net, because when you retire, you no longer have access to employment salary. And our objective of this webinar is to evaluate the conformity of a Sharia in Kenya pension fund operations. I divided my speech into three. Number one, inshallah, we will go to discuss the historical background of a pension here in Kenya. And also we will go to look at types of pension and types of contributions. Also, we'll go to look at financial instruments and retirement benefits, as well as point out area of that call for improvement. So without wasting our time, let us look at historical background associated with pension scheme here in Kenya. The Social Security Fund operated in pre-colonial period as a community system. However, the colonial government recommended the establishment of a provident fund for African employees. But they note that the pension scheme was not favorable because it needed substantial resource from national treasury. So after independence, the Kenyan government declared the introduction of social protection for the citizens, but realized that could not able to manage to achieve the objective because number one, there was a lack of financial resource. Also, number two, the growth rate of the population. So they were not able to introduce the social protection for their citizenship. After that, the government, after the time of the period, the government were able to establish a national health insurance and national provident schemes. But we realized that saving in provident schemes were not compulsory for the all workers. So after that, the National Security Fund, NSSF, was established by an Act of Parliament, Chapter 258, in November in 1965, but contribution began in July 1966. The NSSF initially worked under 3 Ministries of Labor. There was governed by the 3 representatives. Number 1, the government, number 2, the workers, and number 3, the employers. But in January 1987, the NSSF was amended with several issues. Number 1, they established management board for trustees to replace the advisory council, and investment committee. Also, the another amendment was the scheme was compulsory for employer. Before we say that it is voluntary. After that, at the time, the monthly contribution was 5% of the monthly salary. Later, the NSSF Act in 1965 and its regulation were revoked by NSSF Act 2013 and was transferred from a provident fund to pension schemes. So the establishment of funds, the Act established 2 funds known as pension fund and provident funds. Here, so right now, currently we have 2 funds. Number 1 is a pension fund, and number 2 is a provident fund. What is the difference between pension fund and provident fund? For the pension fund, it is compulsory for employees to contribute to the pension schemes. But for provident fund, here is a voluntary for self-employed. So this is a short summary of the historical background of National Security Fund in Kenya. But let us ask ourselves, is there an Islamic pension scheme? When you look at the book written by Abu Ubaidah Qasim bin Sulaiman, Kitab al-Amwal, the book was published in 1965. Page 250, the book was published in Beirut, Dar al-Kutub al-Ilmiya, say that Abu Ubaidah said, Khiyar, there's a person who is known as Khiyar bin Auf, passed by Uthman ibn Affan and asked him, how many children do you have? So here he replied to Uthman ibn Affan, I said, I have so and so. Then Uthman told him, we have imposed from our treasury a certain amount for you and your family. So this is the evidence. It shows that the pension scheme also existed in Islam. So as we said before, we want to look at types of contributions. Here in Kenya, we have two types of contribution. Number one is a mandatory contributions, and number two is a voluntary contributions. So when we look at the mandatory contribution according to NSSF Act 45, 2013, Section 20, Clause 1, and Act 45, Section 19, Clause 6, it is stated that every employer who employs one or more employees shall register and contribute 12%, split as follow. So the employer contributes 6%, and the employees also contribute 6% of the salary. So furthermore, every employer who fail or refuse to register employee under NSSF schemes commit an offense and shall be liable to a fine not less than 50,000. 50,000 maybe it is equivalent to $500. So according to this, this is the evidence that contribution to the scheme is mandatory. So for everyone who meets the condition regardless of his or her income level. Based on this, Muslim scholars, they debate on the issue of mandatory contributions. Some scholars, they objected mandatory contributions, but those who advocated mandatory contribution hold that it is permissible under Islamic principle of corporations. So we want to look at the one who advocated and the one who objected the mandatory contributions. So you have two opinions. Number one, pension scheme is permissible, and this opinion was supported by Sheikh Abdullah bin Abdul Rahman al-Jibrin, and he released his statement. He said that there has been a lot of argument about what the government is doing in deducting salary from the employee, known as pension schemes. And he continued to say that this kind of transaction is free from interest. Also, the numbers of Muslim scholars like Sheikh Uthaymeen also, he said that it is permissible to take pension fund because it is a reward from employees' salary when needed. And also Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz also, he was asked about the mandatory contribution, and he said it is permissible to take, and this fatwa has been issued by senior scholars. Also, we have permanent committee for scholarly and research, and IFTA also, they say that mandatory contribution is also permissible. They say that if this is the case, it is permissible to take retirement pension because it is a reward for the service you perform during the work period for the government. So those are the numbers of Muslim scholars who say the mandatory contribution is permissible, and they support their opinion with a number of justifications. They say that mandatory contribution does not contradict the principle of Sharia when a pension schemes aim to achieve cooperations, solidarity, and justice among the members. Also, they justify and they say that the employee contribute much less than what they receive after retirement. Also, they support their opinion and say that mandatory contributions, the government does not seek any profit from its citizens. Also, they say that pension scheme is a bond and reward from the state to his to the citizens. So there's a number of justification, and they conclude that they say that the mandatory contribution it's not contradict with the principle of Islamic law. But on another hand, other Muslim jurists argue that and say that mandatory contribution is illegal because it contains a number of legal prohibition, including riba, gambling, consuming wealth illegally. So there are two opinions regarding the monthly regarding the mandatory contributions. But me, I concur with the majority of Muslim jurists for the following, a lot of reasons. Okay, let us look at another issue, which is voluntary contribution. Here in Kenya, according to the NSSF Act 45 of 2013, Section 23(1), it is stated that a self-employed, a person willing to contribute to the provident fund will pay cash 200 as the minimum amount, and the minimum aggregation contribution shall be cash of 4,800. So this also is in line with the Constitution of Kenya, which it states that every Kenyan has a right to social security. Muslim jurists, they say that saving money is important because it helps protect you in the event of financial emergency. Addition, saving money can help you pay for large purchases, avoid debt, reduce your financial stress, also leave a financial legacy, and provide you with a greater sense of financial freedom. So based on the above discussion, voluntary contribution to pension scheme is formed on the basis of Islamic cooperative. And this view also was supported by Dr. Wahbat Zuhaili, who said that voluntary contribution to the pension scheme, it as a form of cooperative. Therefore, the members contribute to a common fund for the sake of mutual benefits. So this is the opinion number one. But another Muslim jurist opinion, they say that is to accept voluntary contribution as a qard hasan. So it means that the NSSF can accept the contribution to the members as a qard hasan, and it's interest-free loan, which means giving funds to the NSSF schemes in order to utilize it and returning it immediately or after specific agreed times. Furthermore, a receiver, and NSSF, is permitted to use the fund and to enjoy all profit and losses, owing only the principal amount borrowed to the owner. So this is the Muslim opinion of Muslim jurists regarding the voluntary contribution. So the NSSF can accept it as a qard hasan. Also, they can accept it as a mutual benefit from the members. Another issue.
Ansab, unmute, please. Unmute your Sheikh. Yes, please. Continue.
Investment of pension schemes. Investment in NSSF is extended across the various sectors of the economics. When you look at the NSSF website, you will find that NSSF, they invest their money on various sectors of economics. They invest by using government security. Also, they use deposit, they use as a TPS, and they invest also in the properties and equities and corporate bonds. So, what is the Islamic view on this? So, number one, we have deposits. Deposits are collected from both national conventional banks and Islamic bank. But there are some difference between the two institutions that lie in the agreement of rewards. The bank interest, according to the conventional bank, is fixed and predetermined. Whereas in Islamic bank, deposits are accepted in Islamic banking as a mudaraba or as a musharaka contract, where profit are changeable. And another major difference is a conventional bank is born by a bank, and its interest belongs to the depositors at a fixed rate. But while under Islamic Sharia perspective, risk, profit, and loss sharing is shared between the banks and depositors, depending on the outcome of the investment. But NSSF, according to the report according to the report, they deposit their money to the Chase Bank and the Imperial Bank, which both of them they work, they operate as conventional banks. So this is the point number one. So there we find there's a total difference between conventional bank and Islamic bank for the way of accepting the deposits. Another issue also, NSSF, they invest on corporate bonds. Corporate bond is a kind of a debt security issued by a firm and sold to investors. And the financial institution and capital are returned to the investor with a fixed or a variable interest. In view to this, the majority of the contemporary Muslim scholars forbid all kinds of conventional bonds, including government security, because they contain the element of riba. And this opinion also was supported by the Dr. Abdul Aziz Al Khairat, Dr. Yusuf Al Qaradawi, Dr. Saleh Marzouk, among others. And also this opinion was concurred by the International Islamic Fiqh Academy. So corporate bonds are forbidden because of the following reasons. Number one, the bonds are considered debt, which at the end, the issuer will receive principal amount plus fixed interest on maturity dates. Number two, the corporate bond also was forbidden because bondholder receive fixed interest payment bearing no loss, and this contradicts with the Islamic Sharia perspective. Among them, the Islamic legal maxim states that there should be neither harming nor reciprocating. So this is the view on corporate bonds. Also, NSSF, they invest their money in equities. Equities are the company shared. It has been reported that NSSF invests some of its share to Safaricom in the year of 2018 June. And based on this, it is permissible to buy and to sell the shares of the company as long as they do not engage in the forbidden transaction. This is the choice of Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, Sheikh Abdul Razak Al Afif, Sheikh Muhammad Al Uthaymin, Sheikh Abdullah bin Muni', and Sheikh Abdul Wahab Al Khalaf, among others. So, although buying and selling shares is permitted, there are some rules and regulations that distinguish between shares from conventional system. In this regard, a researcher known as Choudhury and others, they summarized Islamic Shariah's principle for investment in the stock market. So company must involve in accepted halal and not engage in haram activities such as engaging in the kind of riba, selling alcohol, gambling, pornography, pubs, and etc. Also, it does not authorize to invest in a company which has got only liquid assets, and also paying of zakat at the end of the years if the shares reach a certain amount of nisab. Also, as we said, the NSSF also they invest in the properties. The NSSF invests approximately 500 billion in the project to build 30,000 affordable houses in Mavoko, among other areas. According to the report, some property are ready for sale. So the legislation of trading has been mentioned in the Quran, but Allah has permitted the trade and prohibited riba. And this kind of transaction is known as mudaraba, sell commodity with additional profit. Also engaged, mudaraba was engaged by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was asked regarding the best occupation, and he replied, the work of man with his own hand. So, on my view, implementing the mudaraba model is too difficult for lower income earner in terms of affording a house unit because the cost of living here in Kenya is high. So therefore, I suggest applying musharaka mutanaqisa, diminishing partnership. So in this regard, how it can be applied, members of NSSF pay down payment to the developer and own 10% of the house project. Then the members and the NSSF enter into a diminishing partnership contract. Following the partnership, and NSSF pay the remaining amount of 90% to the developer. Therefore, the NSSF sells shares to the house periodical, and thus increasing the shares of NSSF and increasing the members' shares. Lastly, the members will able to possess the house, making him or her sole owner. So this is my suggestion, and this I think will favor the Mwananchi, the local Mwananchi. Also, NSSF they invest in TPS. The TPS is the tenant purchase schemes. Is an option for the developer to own house property by making monthly installment payments. And the model is used by the National Security Fund to favor lower income earner. And investors are required to pay monthly installment plus an interest, which reduce the selling price over an agreed period. So the developer will own the property when the price is full paid after a certain year with the interest, with interest rate, with interest. So monthly installment payment, this can be done by paying through M-Pesa bill 3333 and 00, or by dealing *103 *1 hash. So this is the mode of payment. You can either pay by M-Pesa or you can either pay by dealing *303. So Muslim jurists, they differ on the issue of increasing price of hire purchase. So the Muslim jurist Hanafi, Malik, Shafi, and Hanbali permitted increasing the price of hire purchase as long as the interest is not stipulated in the agreement. And this opinion was also supported by the contemporary Muslim scholars like Abu Wahbat al-Zuhaili, Al-Rafiq al-Misri, among others. And also this opinion was supported by the International Islamic Fiqh Academy. And we have another opinion, state that another Muslim jurist opinion forbid the sale of commodity in installment where with an increase in the current price. And this opinion also was supported by the contemporary Muslim scholars like Muhammad Abu Zura, Abdul Rahman, among others. So after observing the two opinions, I suggest the implementation of Al-Ijara Al-Muntahiya bin Tamlik as an alternative to TPS, which is leasing the property for a specific period by paying an agreed fixed amount at the end of Ijara lease. Ownership will be transferred to the leasee effectively in form of hiba, in form of gifts. So this is my observations. Last, we want to look at retirement benefit. According to the here in Kenya, we have two types of funds. Number one, pension scheme. We have the old one and the new provident funds. According to the old funds, the NSSF provide lump sum benefit for those who reach the age of 50 and as a withdrawal, and at the one who attain the age of 55. In respect of pension fund, earlier retirement age is 50 years, and a normal retirement pension is 60. But while when you look at the new provident fund, require at least 5 years. So apart of the lump sum provided after retirement age, the member receive also an interest rate at a minimum of 2.5%. So retirement income has been observed non-Sharia compliant because it contains the element of interest rate. Interest. Also, so here I propose using Wakala model as an Islamic alternative to ensure that investment is in line with Sharia principle. And Wakala, there are several verses from Quran, Hadith, mention the permissibility of Wakala contract. So the way forward, here I suggest that using of Wakala as an alternative. So the operation of Wakala can be commenced when the members appoint the NSSF as an agent to manage and to invest in the fund. Consequently, member pay contribution and Wakala fees and administration's expenses for providing its service. To cover the risk, the net contribution will be credited into two accounts. Number one, a savings, personal savings account and a risk account. So under this account, member contribute a certain amount, which will be utilized to pay for claim etc. Finally, the amount for both accounts will be invested in Sharia compliant. Profit earned from the investment will allocated to both accounts as per original ratio. So in addition to that, any surplus will be distributed to the personal savings account. So in case of loss of fund, the NSSF will be liable, however, will not be liable. However, in the case of negligence and misconduct, will be responsible for that. Last, I want also to discuss the issue of survival legal benefit. The NSSF set a policy for dependent relative who qualified for benefits and give priority to the following legal heirs in the following order: spouse and husband or wife, children, both parents, brother, sister, grandparents, other next of kin. So here, NSSF is consistent with the principle of Islamic inheritance. As we know, if a Muslim dies, the following right must be settled: the burial preparation, which consists of ritual bath, dress for the grave, and so on and so on. And number two is the settlement of the debts. so which must be taken from the property. Number 3 is execution of will or bequest. This should not be exceed 1/3 of the property and not favor of the one of the legal heirs. So further, whatever remain shall be distributed among legal heirs and given priority to the primary legal heirs are always entitled to share of the inheritance. So violating Islamic inheritance will create conflict, fight, dispute, hostility, and a split among family members. So therefore, if a Muslim dies, so a predetermined sum must be handed to the Qadi's court for proper distributions. So this is the another violation of Islamic inheritance. So my recommendation, I recommended for NSSF to open Islamic window whereby the fund will be invested in Sharia compliance. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Wajazakumullahu khairah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mansab, for the presentation and elaborations on the issues with regards to first the Islamic point of view on the social security, which is quite clear that Islam recognizes social security within the parameters of Sharia. And of course, when it comes to institutions that are set for provision of this important service to the society, they need also to operate within the Sharia parameters. And as you have highlighted, there are different points of concerns for the National Social Security Fund of Kenya. Now, on my side, before I open for Q&A, I would like to just share from the Tanzanian perspective, from the research that we have also carried with regards to our national social security funds. But before I do that, I do like to add a few points on the Islamic point of view on social security. Besides what Dr. Mansab said, Islam recognize and actually consider one of the role of the state is to take care of its citizens for their welfare. And in so doing, through whatever the government generates in the Baitul Mal, it can allocate to the elderly and to the needy in order to cater for their living. I recall an incident during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab that he walked in the street and found a non-Muslim, imagine, a non-Muslim that was under his Khilafah, and he was begging for an assistance. Umar ibn al-Khattab inquired about this elderly man and was informed that this is a non-Muslim, an elderly person. He cannot cater for himself. Then Umar ibn al-Khattab said, we used to receive jizya from them when they were energetic and able to work, and we cannot leave them to beg or suffer when they're elderly. And then instructed the person that was with him to include the elderly person among the beneficiaries of the Baitul Mal for his subsistence, or for his to manage his cost of living. So beyond that, we recognize zakat as an important instrument that Islam has set for the purpose of helping the members of society during the time of need. Now, the zakat scope is quite broader. It's not just for those who are elderly, but rather for even the young person who is needy and the poor among other categories of beneficiaries of zakat. So Islam has a rich heritage of what a state Muslim community needs to do in order to provide safety nets, livelihood for their members within the community. Having said that, with respect to our institutions that are providing social security in Tanzania, as you know, for those who are in Tanzania, we have in the mainland, we have two institutions. One is for public servants, and that is called the PSSSF, Public Servants Social Security Fund. And then we have the National Social Security Fund for the private sector. And by law, if you are in the private sector, you are a business in private sector, you are required as an employer to register with them and deduct from your employee a certain portion. And also as an employer, you have to contribute a certain portions monthly to the NSSF. And so happens to the PSSF, of which the employees are also deducted a certain portion, and the government as an employer contributes the other. In Zanzibar, there is a Zanzibar Social Security Fund that caters for both the public sector as well as the private sector. And so they are required to be a member. And also there are voluntary contributions between the ZSSF and NSSF, between the one in the mainland and the one in Zanzibar. Take note, ZSSF is independent from NSSF because these are entities of two different governments. One of the Tanzanian mainland or Tanganyika, and the other one is for Zanzibar. And even the jurisdictions of the members are confined within these two territories. Now, when it comes to the model of operation for these funds, there are important concepts that needs to be understood in the pension funds operation. One is what is called the defined contribution mechanism, and there is defined benefit mechanism. Defined contribution mechanism, this is what in most of, to my knowledge, most of Kenyan's pension funds are based on the defined contributions. You contribute, and the employer contributes, and then this money are invested, of which, depending on what you contributed between yourself and the employee, and the investment returns is what is going to be used to pay for your benefits, for your retirement benefits. So if the fund performs well, you get a good pension out of it. But if there is some challenges on the investments, then again, even your pension becomes a little bit lower than expected. But on the defined benefits, this is also another system of which there is a different methodology of calculating the benefits, and largely it is based on your last salary. And then there is a formula that is used in order to determine your defined benefits, how much you should be given based on your last salary plus your contributions, and so on and so on and so forth. And with that regards, irrespective of the investments that the fund will be able to generate, the pension based on that formula, it has the obligation to pay you the benefits. I repeat, irrespective of the investment that are done and the defined benefits, the pension is obliged based on that formula, based on the formula that it has to pay you those defined benefits, irrespective of whether the investments are able to support that or otherwise. But again, definitely, it is expected that the management will be able to be able to run these funds in order to be able to generate good returns and so on. At the end of the day, the governments bear the responsibility to ensure the sustainability of these benefits. Having said that, the issue of defined benefits from the Sharia point of view, there are bigger concerns of this system, of which, as I said, is what is used in the PSSF and NSSF and ZSSF are based on defined benefits. And there are Sharia concerns on that. Number one being the gharar element, of which it is not known at the time of retirement, first, how much actually will be your salary. Nobody who is working now, I cannot tell in the next 10 years what will be my final salary, of which it will be used to calculate the benefits. But more so, it is again the issue of defined benefit, that your benefits are going to be based on a particular formula, not with respect to whatever comes from the investment. So it's like there is a defined formula of which, based on your final pay, we will put that final pay times this number and that number, divide by that number, and then we get a specific pension that we need to pay you. So that is like a guaranteed return for being a member, for contributing to these funds. And you can see it is coming to resonate with what riba is, which is actually a promised, a guaranteed return on what you give to the other party. So that is one of the things that I wanted to add, but the other issues with respect to investments, these are quite across between Kenya and also in Tanzania. Investments are also made on deposits to the banks. Investments are done on corporate bonds, on treasury bonds, on properties, but also our pensions here in Tanzania gives loans to some private companies. And when they do so, they provide those loans to corporates and charge interest out of that. So with respect to investments, there are varieties of issues that are of Sharia concerns. The deposits, term deposits, are normally done on conventional banks. Corporate bonds that we have are all conventional, except of recent. We had some few sukuks that have come. We are not yet clear to know whether these pension funds have invested into any of these sukuks. There are properties and others. But also with respect to retirement benefits, the issue of survival benefits, again, featured in, just as in Kenya. As we know, Sharia has its own law of inheritance, of how the estate has to be managed and distributed to the rightful heirs. But you find that particularly in the mainland, particularly in NSSF and PSSF, whereby there are defined proportions as to how much goes to the husband or the wife and how much goes to children's and the parents of the deceased. We are told or are learned that in Zanzibar, this issue of survival benefit is administered by the Waqf or the Mufti's office, or the Waqf and the commission that has the responsibility of administering inheritance in Zanzibar. So Zanzibar, with respect to this issue, is quite unique. However, there are still some issues here with respect to how quickly these inheritances are distributed and so on and so forth. Is another area that requires its own research to establish how once a member dies, how the funds moves from the ZSSF to the maybe administration of the Mufti's office, and what are measures that are taken in order to ensure the rightful heirs gets their fair share of it. That is something that requires further research. So to conclude, I think we have areas to improve, even in Tanzanian pension social security funds. The first one being on the issue of the defined contribution versus defined benefits, of which we recommend defined contributions to be the default system. What you contribute, what your employer contributes, what the investment generates. Based on that, it is what you are going to, based on now a formula of profit sharing, that is how you're going to be earning your pension based on these parameters. Of course, the issue of investments, we have to ensure the investments that are done on the Sharia compliant assets, not on any investment asset like the way they do right now. Again, when it comes to benefits, definitely the issue of survival benefits for the case of PSSF and NSSF mainland, these needs really to be changed, and we needed to, or they needed to consider that Islam has its own laws of inheritance, and they need to respect that and follow it. That being said, dear participants, allow me now to give you a moment to ask a question or contribute from what we have presented. So if you have any question, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute, and then we can allow you to ask your question. So the floor is yours, dear participants. If any one of you wants to ask a question or make a contribution, you are welcome. Anyone from the participants? Okay, I'll start by asking Dr. Mansab. There has been a question of now, if you are a member of NSSF of Kenya, how, as a member and as a retiree, how do I go about making sure that I take what is lawful, what is halal, and leave what is haram? Is there a method or a mechanism on what I need to do in order to make sure I take what is halal and I leave what is haram under the, if I'm a member of NSSF?
As I said, the system operated here in Kenya was made by the conventional system. So the only way is to maybe to open an Islamic window and to ensure that the investments plus contribution are made based on the Sharia compliance.
Okay. And it is important to also note that in Kenya, there are two pension funds. One is CPF Saleh, that is a window of CPF. And then there is another one, which is called the LAP Fund. They have a window called the LAP Fund Amal. So for those who can join in Kenya, a pension fund, then this could be their resort or their option to register into these windows. But in Kenya, the system of pension is quite unique. It's quite different from Tanzania. Besides having these two Islamic, Kenya allows institutions or companies to have their own schemes, to have their own retirement benefit schemes. And in that regard, if you work in a certain company that has its own schemes, you have not much options except to oblige to be a member of that company's scheme. And if the company is run by Muslims, then we urge them to conform to the Islamic views of operating such a scheme. though there are some challenges that might come out of it, but it's important to ensure the scheme operates on Islamic principles. And if it happens that you are a member of an SSF, of a conventional NSSF in Kenya or even here in Tanzania, I think to be on the safe side is to establish what you contributed and what your employer contributed. And since this is accessible, because we all have the rights to get our statements. When you're a member of a pension scheme, either in Tanzania or in Kenya, you can get your statement from the date you started to contribute to the date you retire. And then you can be able to establish how much you contributed, how much your employer contributed. Shariah has no issue of the fund that the employer contributed. However, Shariah has issues with the investment income that will be coming. And since it's very hard to know on the statement which one comes, then it is prudent for you to take your pension to the extent of what you contributed and what your employer contributed, and try to avoid or spend on charity what is more than that. This will be a prudent measure in order to avoid consuming a non-permissible investment income. However, there could be further analyses to be done if need be on the issue of investment income, if the pension fund will be able to disclose fully in terms of its investment assets for proper Sharia analysis in terms of what was compliant, what was not, what was non-compliant, and so on. But for a simple person, the prudent method would be to do as that, to simply take to the extent that is what you contributed, what your employer contributed, and avoid the other. And also the other option is what Dr. Mansab said. The pension, the NSSF should open the window, or if it's possible for you to go for the conventional, for the Islamic windows that are already there in Kenya. But for Tanzania, this is something that really needs to be worked upon. There are no options except those 3 pension social security funds. But as I said, you can manage it in the way I've explained in order to be on the safe side. If there is any question, dear participant, this is your time. I see on the chat there is a question from Sheikh Mansab's presentation, the issue of paying zakat. What is the responsibility of the fund and what is the responsibility of the member? Where do we draw the line? Is there zakat obligation on these pension funds?
In Sharia, we have an issue which is known as zakat al-mal al-mustafad. So a pension is a part of it, and if you receive your pension and reach nisab, so you're supposed to pay zakat.
Thank you so much. As we know, in our systems of pensions in both countries, there is a lump sum money that you receive when you retire, and then the rest is annualized, is amortized for you to receive it monthly. So what the Sheikh Mansab is saying, if I understood him correctly, is whatever you receive when you retired as a lump sum, and that if it has reached in nisab, then you are obliged to pay once zakat out of it, and so on. Thank you so much for that question. Is there any other question? I see. What is your view using wadi'a contract in the defined benefit pension scheme? Now, wadi'a is a safekeeping, contract of which you are not allowed to get more than what you kept. That is the principle under wadi'a contract. Is a safekeeping contract. I give you money give you my contribution for you to safekeep, not even to use it, is to keep it safely. And due to practical difficulties, most of the even banks have lived using Wadia contract, and they're using rather a Qardi contract because it gives them a room to use the funds for investments and so on. So even Wadia will not solve the issue of the DB. DB's pension system is itself has a problem, has a Sharia problem, because it guarantees a certain benefits upon retirement based on a formula. There is just a calculated formula, which is we take out what was your last pay, and then we put it with certain numbers that are, or the formula within the formula, and we simply get what you're supposed to get, irrespective of what the funds or the performance of the funds and so on. So that system is according to scholars who have studied it, consider it not Sharia compliant pension system. Of course, I understand in Malaysia they are trying to find a solution for this system, but not yet obtained. So a defined contribution is what an Islamic pension system can opt for now, rather than a DB pension system. What are challenges of migration of members if the scheme wants to change from DB to DC? Well, the challenges are quite obvious in the sense that there will be fluctuation when it comes to pension payout. Okay, the DC doesn't guarantee a certain benefit, a certain pension amount. It depends with the performance of the fund investments. So that could be an area of concerns for some members who are not conscious of Sharia and the way that Sharia pension scheme is supposed to work. But through education, okay, through proper publicity, I believe people will come to understand, especially those who are Sharia conscious, will come to understand and appreciate that since they want a Sharia compliant pension scheme, then they have to live within its realities, of which you're going to get the benefits based on the parameters or within the parameters of Sharia. So when it comes to migrating them, then definitely you have to give the people options. If like you are a ZSSF, you want to establish a window, then this product or this service, once the window has been set up, okay, the members will have to be informed that we have another scheme of DC, which is Sharia compliant, and this is what how it operates, how it comply. And the members now will choose whether to remain under the DB, which is not Sharia compliant system, or they fill a form, or they consent to move to the DC system. So with that, then definitely, I don't consider it a challenge, but definitely some people might refuse to migrate to DC. Others will move to DC. What we are arguing here is for operators to give options to, to pension fund operators to give options to their members, those who want a Sharia compliant pension scheme to be able to subscribe to, and those who want the conventional one, it is their responsibility and mas'uliyah, of which we have no control of, and so on. So that is what I can see. There will be a challenge in terms of maybe accepting to move. There could be also a challenge in terms of facing the realities that the payout, the benefits might not be constant as the way the DB operates, which is a defined one. Another question I see here: is it allowed to pay zakat of the properties that you acquired it through illegal means? Sheikh Mansab, I will leave this to you if you are around.
If you acquired by illegal means, Well, there are three opinion. There are three opinion on this regard. Some Muslim scholars, they say you're supposed to pay, and the other they say you are not supposed to pay, and the other you say you can utilize for the public interests. So this is the zakat for someone who acquired wealth on illegally way.
Which way would you strongly recommend out of the three?
The last one.
The last one.
Yeah, this was illustrated by the when you go back to the jurisprudence book, you will find zakat amwal mashbuha. So this also was applied by the Beit Zakat al-Kuwaiti, and also in Sudan they applied. They use it they utilize this as a public interest.
So the property or whatever that here is whatever is supposed to pay on zakat, on that property, whatever income that is supposed to pay to zakat is actually was supposed to go to the public interest, definitely. How is it different from the second opinion, which is to pay zakat? Again, zakat goes to the defined number of people, but maybe you are trying to say here is for the third view is you can pay, but again to other members, to the community, rather than to the 8 categories of zakat recipient. Or can you maybe share more on that?
Yes, I mean that. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, you accept the zakat, but you didn't give to the 8 recipients of zakat. You utilize it for the sake of the public interest. Maybe you can you can use it to give you can use it to make a road, you can use it to build a hospital, etc. Okay. Among others.
I see, I understand. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. Dear members, I see there are also a number of other questions that are here that have come. Maybe we can take 2 given the short of time. He's saying Social Security is a right of all citizens in an Islamic society, regardless of religion and so on. And Islamic society is bound of providing these rights for its citizens to have Social Security from its specific resources. Now, how about our nation's pension system, which are mostly based on the conventional side? What is your advice to our fellow members concerning these non-Sharia compliant pension schemes? Dr. Mansab, you wanted to just share your advice to those who are members of non-Sharia compliant pension schemes?
Maybe you can proceed on it.
Okay, the advice, if you are in Kenya, you have to first look at the option of you going to the Islamic pension, Islamic windows that are there. If you are in Kenya and if that is doable. And if, again, as I said, due to legal restriction or legal barriers, if it's not doable, then you have to manage it in a way I've prescribed. If you know you are a member of a pension scheme that is not Sharia compliant, then you need to know what is allowed for you and what is not allowed for you to take. And I had highlighted that this record, there are statements for your contributions. You just needed to make sure you check your statement of what you had contributed, what your employer contributed, and confine yourself to receive the funds to the extent of what you and your employer contributed. And whatever investment income that, again, you might not leave it there, you might receive again, but don't consume it for yourself. You have to purify it, you have to give it to the community. Okay, you have to get rid out of it because it is mutashabiha income. There could be income which is halal there, like from property rents of the properties that these pension funds sometimes build invest in properties. But again, we don't know what percentage of that income is from properties. We might not know what percentage comes from the treasury bills and treasury bonds. So it becomes a mutashabiha component of which a Muslim is advised by the prophets to avoid ma yarbik. Whatever is doubtful is better for you to avoid engaging into such, which is the advice here. Whatever extra apart from what you contributed, give it to charity. And if there is a Sharia compliant income out of it, you will get your thawab out of it. And if there was a non-Sharia compliant of it, then you have get rid of that, because this is a fact, is not something out of our minds. This is something factual. This is how the funds, how the pension funds manages these funds, and it's not something hidden. Even yourself as a member, you can inquire for the annual reports of these funds, and you will be able to see where they have invested, how much they have made on varieties of asset classes. So it's not something like what other Muslim thinks that, you know, I gave the money, whatever this guy is doing, I don't know. So if I don't know, I'm free of guilt. No, it's quite clear. It is you who don't want to know, but everything is plain for everybody to see how things are operating. I think we'll stop here due to the constraints of time. And I would like to give our presenter, Dr. Mansab, 1 minute to give you a final remarks before we come to an end of the session. Salum Lupande?
Hello?
Okay, there was a hand from Salum Lupande, but now I don't know if he's able to make his point, because we don't hear him.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you very much for enlightening us with this. It's an issue of those of us who are with the conventional law, and what can we do in terms of the constitutional fund? How do I know the halal fund of the entire amount that I'm losing? Because in end of my now you are saying one.
We are not getting you very clearly, Sheikh Lupande.
Okay, maybe the network is not good.
I can
you get me
that.
now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, what I was saying, you have advised that because we have statements for our contributions, and hence it will be easier to know how much we are eligible to receive. Now, my question is, Sheikh already said we have two types of amounts we receive at the end. There is a withdrawal, a lump sum amount, and then the pensionable amount that one will be receiving on a monthly basis. How do I know at the time of retirement, how much will I be receiving, so that I can say this will be equivalent to my contributions? Because pensions, as it stands, is perpetual. The moment I retire, I'll be receiving until I die. And so how will I know the amount to limit what I receive now at the beginning? Thank you.
Yeah, when you are about to retire, 1 month or two, get your financial, get your numbers, get your financial statement 1 month or 2 months before you receive, before you retire, and for you to be able to know how much you had contributed, which is halal for you to take, with what also the employer has contributed. So with that, you will now calculate on the lump sum. If what you received on a lump sum is 100% of what you contributed, then whatever you get on monthly, give it to charity somewhere else. But if you know what you received on the lump sum is lesser than what you had contributed, then keep taking what you get on monthly. To the extent this comes to 100%, then whatever you receive after that is another issue. It's something that we'll have to give to charity in order to be on the safe side.
Okay, so that means the recommendation here is not to stop the amount to receive, but to take care once I receive.
You have to do your numbers, you have to do your calculations to know how much you are entitled to receive. So when you receive it lump sum, you deduct from the total that you were entitled to receive based on your contribution. And the rest that comes, you need to keep your numbers to receive to the extent it comes to the total of what you had contributed together with your employer. Is that clear, Sheikh?
Yes, now it is clear, because my question was how do I predetermine the future? And that means in case I die, I will have to leave behind some instructions on how whatever amount that is going to be received on my behalf, it can be used, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Then those are the issues that you needed to give on your wasiyah to your kids as to what they are going to receive on the survivor's benefit, how they are supposed to handle it.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why it is very important for a Muslim to give a wasiyah. Okay, it's very important. Is very important, highly emphasized in Sharia to do a wasiyah. Okay, because there are certain things like this that needs to be well articulated, informed to the inheritors in order for them to handle this estate within the Sharia parameters. Thank you so much for that question. Now we give 1 minute closing remarks to our presenter before we wind up the session. Dr. Mansab.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
My close remarks, we found that the NSSF invests in deposit, government security, corporate bond, equity, and TPS. And we found that there was legal violations. So I recommend for NSSF to open Islamic window, whereby the fund will be invested in Sharia compliance. Also, I recommend to NSSF also to comply with Sharia Islamic inheritance. Jazakumullahu khairan, barakallahu fikum.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mansab. With that closing remark, I think the same applies to the Tanzanian Social Security Fund to set Islamic windows and comply with the Islamic law of inheritance as we have discussed today. Dear participants, I thank you so much for your attentiveness as well as for your participations and your questions and contributions. And we pray to Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to reward you abundantly for your time that you have allocated to this session. And we have no further things except to pray to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that to reward Dr. Mansab for the research and for the presentation that he has shared with us, and to reward all of us who have made these small efforts, and pray Allah to reward us for this small contribution that we are trying to make in order to highlight Sharia views, in order for us to live according to his laws. With that being said, thank you once again. Shukran wa jazakumullahu khair. And we have come to an end of today's session. Ma'as-salama wa jazakumullahu khair. And especially to you, Dr. Mansab, for allowing us to learn from your research and your knowledge. Barakallahu fikum. Ma'assalam. I will now end the presentation, inshallah.